Okay, so I'm going to be talking about why we should not repeal the gun restrictions that were applied in 2016. The first point that my opponent made was that these new gun restrictions will harm the court system because the court systems are already strained, and that simply isn't really the whole story. The fact that he didn't mention the fact that crimes themselves also put strain on the courts. So if there's going to be fewer crimes committed, then it'll put less strain on the courts than what he was implying. And on top of that, gun control laws reduce the societal costs associated with gun violence. According to government statistics analyzed by Ted Miller for the Pacific Institute for Research and Evaluation, costs to the government in 2010 from gun violence were $5.4 billion in tax revenue lost because of lost work, $4.7 billion in court costs, $1.4 billion in Medicare and Medicaid costs for firearm injuries and deaths, $180 million in mental health care costs for gunshot victims, $224 million in insurance claims processing, and $133 million for responding to shooting injuries. So that's, if you add all that up and do the math, that's at least $12 billion a year and a direct societal cost of $32 per gun. So not only did he not take into account the financial strain that gun violence puts on the country, that hopefully these new laws will help fix, he also didn't explain how repealing these new this new legislation would help alleviate the pressure in the courts. Another point that he made was that these gun restrictions burden law-abiding citizens. And while it may make it harder for a law-abiding citizen to get a gun, that is not the only thing that happens. It has been shown to reduce crime, not only to reduce crime and gun deaths, not only here but in other countries. So there was a study done, and it said statistics were taken from two countries, Australia and Brazil, and it showed sharp decreases in the observed rates of firearm deaths immediately following the implementation of gun reform. There is no way to reconcile this stark empirical reality with the argument that criminals don't obey laws. So even he makes the point that criminals will get a gun even if there are gun restrictions in place. And while that is true, that's definitely the case, and it is a problem. Even if laws can and will be broken, they are still necessary. Josh Sager, in an article on the Progressive Cynic website, says, if laws are irrelevant because criminals will simply ignore them, then there is no purpose for any laws and no potential for a safe society. It has been shown in not only other countries but this country as well that gun restrictions have lowered have been effective in reducing gun-related deaths. Jeremy Stahl, in an article on Slate.com, says, contrary to popular belief, suicidal thoughts are often transient, which is why delaying access to a firearm during a period of crisis could prevent suicide. That's from Daniel Webster, who is the director of Johns Hopkins Center for Gun Policy and Research Study. And this study found that a 5.4% reduction in firearm suicide rates in Connecticut after the passage of a 1995 law requiring individuals to obtain a permit or license to purchase a handgun after passing a background check. Similarly, Missouri's repeal of its handgun purchase or licensing law in 2007 was associated with a 16.1% increase in firearm suicide rates. So that they did make sure to say that it isn't a direct cause, but it is a correlation that we need to keep in mind. And in other countries it has shown to work as well. The United States, with less than 5% of the world's population, has about 35 to 50% of the world's civilian-owned guns, according to a 2007 report by the Switzerland-based Small Arms Survey. It ranks number 1 in firearms per capita. The United States also has the highest homicide by firearm rate among the world's most developed nations. And if you do the math, that's more than 25 times the average of those. So that's a pretty crazy number, and it shows that the whole argument about gun laws not doing anything and not working doesn't really add up. He also argued that gun owners are put at risk he argues that gun owners are put at risk with these type of laws. And sorry, I can't find the.
The timer's not on the screen.
But the fact is that he did mention also that they're used for self-defense quite a lot. But the fact is that guns are rarely used in self-defense. A study found that there were the numbers that were collected by the FBI's supplemental homicide report said that there were 259 justifiable homicides in 2012. So those 259 justifiable homicides also pale and compared with, in the same year, 8,342 criminal homicides using guns, 20,666 suicides with guns, and 548 fatal unintentional shootings, according to the FBI Supplemental Homicide Report. The ratio for 2012, per the Violence Policy Center, was 1 justifiable killing for every 32 murders. So he made it seem like there was more, they're used for self-defense more than would be implied, but that's not the case. And then my last point is that he talked about high-capacity magazines not really having an effect. But the reality is that they're really not used for self-defense all that much. A journalism site went to one of the most well-attended gun shows in Las Vegas, and they asked many attendees if they thought these type of clips are necessary for self-defense. One person says, "It takes 1 shot to kill. Anything more than 1 shot is excessive. I mean, if somebody's breaking into your house in a panic, you might shoot him once. You're not going to empty your load on him while they're lying on your kitchen floor." Another person says, "No, I hope not. I don't know why. If 10 rounds of ammunition can't do the job, you probably shouldn't own a gun. I don't want to live next to that guy." So I hope that you'll see that his arguments don't really add up.
Hmm?